Climate change is real.
It is happening right now.
Climate change knows no borders. Climate change leads to ecosystem losses. It's a vicious cycle.
By polluting the oceans,
Nobody's going to buy their way out of this
biodiversity.
effect.
We are
What is
killing our
more
planet.
important than good and clean air? Climate change
Let
is
us
not
face
science
it,
fiction.
there is no planet B. Believe in the
For
power
young
of your
people,
own voice.
climate change is bigger than election or re-election. It's life or death.
Climate change impacts the whole world, everyone. But the flood of issues related to climate change can be overwhelming. The voices and opinions on social media drowning everyone out, to the point where you might be wondering if just one person can do anything to help. How can I have any impact? Climate change impacts everyone, but it can affect your life and your community in ways particular to you and where you live. Chichester lies on the south coast of the UK, close to the sea. Climate change impacts everyone, but it can affect your life and your community in ways particular to you and where you live. Firstly, let's have a quick look at climate change and how it impacts all of us.
Climate change is the most important issue facing our planet. Changes to our weather patterns over a long period of time now means we are seeing that global temperatures are getting warmer, which is leading to more extreme weather events. Warmer, wetter winters leading to more flooding and hotter, drier summers. Climate change is caused when we release too many carbon emissions, carbon, methane and other gases into the atmosphere, which form an insulating layer above the Earth, a blanket trapping in heat which leads to warming of the planet. These carbon emissions are produced when we use energy from coal and gas to heat our homes and to travel by car or plane or produce products we buy. And also the way we mass produce our food with intensive farming.
Climate change impacts us all. Now let's take a look how climate change impact our lives right now in Chichester. Chichester is a low-lying city surrounded by countryside and farmland. It is close to the sea and to Chichester Harbour, and area of outstanding natural beauty. The city is also linked to the sea with rivers and to the canal, and as such flooding is a serious issue. There are two basic reasons we have more flooding. One more is the rain in winter, and the other is due increased global temperatures leading to melting of the polar ice caps, which leads to more water in the sea, and the rate they are melting is faster than predicted by scientists. Locally flooding puts our houses at risk of damage, and also it's made harder to farmers to grow food what we eat.
So Chichester has coastal areas and inland waterways, so naturally flooding is a concern for this area. Flooding is important and is a concern for many residents that live near the edges of the water, so whether that's the rivers or the coastal areas. And flooding again can be contributed to climate change due to carbon emissions increasing the temperature of the planet and increasing the sea levels rising, so that's making flooding more common. So the council has specific environment officers that work with other partners to look at, like the Environment Agency, to look at where flooding occurs and what they can do to decrease it. But we're also looking at how we can reduce our district-wide carbon emissions so that we can help prevent climate change making it a worse problem for the future. It's a very difficult problem because climate change is something that happens over a long period of time, so we need to be making the changes now to make sure things don't get worse in the future.
To make a difference with something as big as flooding, we can aim to reduce the energy we use, which helps to reduce carbon released into the environment as a whole. This can be by using public transport or cycling and walking. You can save electricity by turning off lights, TVs and game consoles when you aren't using them.
You know, the rising sea levels can change the weather and do a lot of flooding, but can also damage the shorelines around our coasts. Nature provides us protection with habitats like a salt marsh and water meadows, but this under threat through development and pollution.
Often areas of shoreline at risk have had barriers or walls built from concrete, but these are expensive to build and then they need to be maintained for many years. Breaches of these walls can cause more flooding, loss of people's homes and risk damages to many habitats.
Climate change is having a big impact on Chichester Harbour and other coastal environments in the UK. The harbour is impacted by erosion a lot, obviously because of rising sea levels. The level of the sea at high tide will be higher and we're getting more extreme weather such as storms, which obviously increase the height of waves and increase the amount of erosion along the shoreline.
Practical help to reduce erosion can be join a community group or volunteers that work to support local environments such as Friends of Chichester Harbour or Sussex Wildlife Trust. These groups plant trees to protect fragile habitats, repair the shoreline, defences and maintain pathways for people to enjoy their local area. When you are out and about enjoying the coastline, it can just be more considerate to the shore, such as keeping to the well-maintained paths, not walking on the salt marsh, and being careful around damaged areas. Also remember to share the love of beautiful photos of the coast on social media.
It isn't just human beings that are being impacted by changes in the climate, it is also the animals we share the planet with. The rising seas and the changing in temperatures, they can disrupt behaviour and also impact habitats. A change in the balance of the local environment or in the food chain can impact you and me. We know the warming of the planet affects how the plants grow, with many flowering earlier due to warmer winters or not being able to grow in the new climate at all. This then affects the habitats where animals live and also food sources for insects, and in particular pollinators like bees. The food we eat is being affected by climate change right now.
With climate change, we're seeing increased temperature rise over periods of time. So over the last 100 years, our annual temperature change globally has increased by over 1 degree, which may not sound much, but actually that changes the seasons and changes whether we get more or less rain. So it's predicted with climate change that we will have more wet winters but warmer winters, and we'll have hotter and drier summers. That will affect the habitats of the animals and the seasons of when plants grow and appear. So insects and animals rely on their food sources from the plants that are growing, and if those plants start appearing earlier or later in the year, the animals won't have the food that they need. So it's really important that we address climate change to keep the habitats and the plants in the right seasons so animals can thrive.
On a larger scale, we can work with local wildlife groups in helping build a better environment for habitats to be safe and for our wildlife to thrive. At home, we can plant wildflowers to help our pollinators. We can also share our love and support for wildlife with our friends, family and on social media.
We also contribute to the pressure that the environment is under. Waste can be rubbish that ends up in our local environment. It could be plastics washed up on our shores or litter by the road, impacting our wildlife. Waste can also be water and energy being used or flushed away when it isn't necessary. The production of the things we use and the food we eat also consumes valuable resources too.
So it's really important that people think about how we use things and what happens to them after we've finished with them. And so if we throw them on the ground or out the car window who's going to pick that up and what's going to happen? If we don't pick them up, if we don't recycle, or if we don't put them in the rubbish bin, then litter will just accumulate and then we'll be swamped. So we need to convince people that it's important to look after their environment, and for that to happen you need to convince people to care. So I always say it's really important to have conversations and just keep talking about what you do, not always about what other people are doing. So you can lead by example. So if you're make sure that you dispose of your rubbish responsibly, and then have conversations with your friends about disposing of rubbish responsibly and what you do to recycle or to reuse things. You can join litter picks.
We all know how important recycling is. You can make a difference by using less single-use plastic too, picking up our rubbish and making sure we dispose of it properly. To help clean up your local environment, you can reduce littering, but you can also join many community groups working to clean local beaches of plastic and waste, improving the environment for both wildlife and people wanting to use the beach and swim. If you look at what you wear, eat and buy from, you can support more local businesses that are having a positive impact on climate change. It might be more of a plant-based diet, it might be less fast fashion and fast food, it might be ethically sourced products.
So instead of throwing things away that you don't need anymore, you could arrange a swap shop at school where everybody comes in and exchanges an item for another item. That's a really nice small thing you can do. You can also encourage your families and your friends to shop locally, so you're travelling less, you're encouraging local business, looking at how you can reduce the carbon footprint of what you're buying, so reduce the distance that something's travelled.
Changes can start small but have a big impact when we pull together.
So we can't ignore the impact of climate change, but we can look at how we can reduce the risk of climate change and the impact of it. We can all make a difference and be part of the solution by thinking how we can travel, save energy in the home and think about what we buy and the waste we create. The most important thing we can do is talk to others and set an example on how to reduce our impact on the planet. If everyone can do one small thing that can be added up and combined for a larger change for the better.
So you can see that even with an issue as big as climate change, you, your family, your friends and your local community can make these changes, both big and small, that together can have a long-term positive global impact. You can make that change, you can be that difference, you can fight climate change.